Welcome back, everybody. It is Wins Above Fantasy, episode 195, Thursday, October 9th. For those of you guys joining on the podcast, those of you on the live stream, welcome back. Steve, welcome back to both of us after a relatively long break as WAF goes. It's been a few weeks. I was out in London. I know you're on paternity leave, just enjoying some playoff baseball out there. We got some action tonight as well, but fantastic to be back. And I know we've also got our too early pitcherless mock draft happening right now. So this definitely feels like kind of the last podcast closing the book on the rearview mirror of 2025. We are going to look at our chalkboard picks from the start of the season, which were our kind of main flag plant targets and fades, and do a little recap there. And then from here on in, we'll be very much looking ahead to the draft landscape, early observations. But this is a fun show, too, because we kind of assess what happened and project out a little bit what we think of these guys going forward into next year. So I can't wait, man. It's always a fun show. It's right in the spirit of what Wins Above Fantasy tries to do with the accountability. And yeah, we got to own some losses, and we got some losses to own tonight. As a little spoiler alert, but it's good to be back, man. How's it going over there?
Yeah, it's good. Definitely miss you, miss talking baseball. For sure the longest break that we had in the 5 years in this show, five
I
and a
think
half years
so.
of this
Yeah,
show.
we've never had a 3-week.
Yeah. And the last of our self audit, right? This was kind of the impetus of us doing this and making sure that we touched on some of our calls and predictions, and this was really the first, like, okay, our guys sort of show. It's that, right? It's just our little twist on our guys, that popular topic that every show and their mother do in the fantasy industry. So fun to get in. Definitely our worst performance, I think, right?
Collectively, no doubt. But
Yeah,
we'll talk
yeah,
about. I think there's some spiritual wins and
sure.
losses kind of mixed in, but yeah,
Mhm.
I hear you. And for those who aren't familiar with the format, every show does have their version
Yeah.
of kind of planting a flag. These are our guys, but the way we've done this for 5 years running is, of the names that we say, it's based on March ADP at the time, right before the season starts. And then the rule is for your targets, they have to finish 20% lower on the Razzball player rater than their ADP. So, for instance, a guy with an ADP of 100 would have to finish in the top 80. Or for your fades, it goes the other direction where they have to finish 20% later in terms of the player rater. So, yeah, always fun, Steve. And we'll just have to kind of grit our teeth and get through this. But anything else you wanted to hit on high level before we kind of jump into some of the names here?
No, but I wonder if we should tweak that for next year. We've
Mm.
done this for a while. I don't know. It just doesn't feel right that, like, if you pick a guy with 20 ADP, right, and they finish as a fade, they don't need to finish that far behind that, right? I
Yeah,
get the spirit of it is because, hey, these are the costs, and is it a good investment? But I don't know. We'll have all. I don't know. Send us an idea, whatever.
yeah, maybe anyone like
Tweet
with
at
an
us.
ADP lower than like 60 and lower,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
have to either cut it in half or double.
I don't
You
want
know
to
what I mean?
eliminate certain, and we could talk about this offline, not to get into the semantics or the behind the curtain
It's a
sort of
good
thing,
topic
but
though.
I don't want to, if you really like a guy and his ADP is 15, like we shouldn't cut off that pool, but I think we should just, I don't know, maybe some sort of weighted percentage or something like
Yeah, make a
that.
staff sheet for
Yeah,
us,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
We'll
And
we'll we'll cook something up, but
all right.
um
Well, let's get into the
yeah,
names
let's
because
get in.
we got 2 targets and 2 fades each. So we got 8 guys to talk
Mhm.
about just from mine and Steve's picks. And then also we had PitchCon prize winning guest John Doring, who, the unlucky one whose prize was he got to come on and talk with us, but he had a blast. It was fun recording with John, and he had some fantastic arguments. Unfortunately, he also did not do well on the scoreboard here, but it will be great to jump in here. So I will start. We'll kind of bounce back and forth, Steve. But starting with my target, and Isak Paredes going back to March was just the guy I wanted to leave every draft with. It was, at the time, the way I put it was that it was the least complex chalkboard pick of all time because it was all about the ballpark move to Houston with the Crawford boxes and his incredible pull air rate and just approach at the plate. So Paredes had an ADP at the time of 169. He would have had to move to the top 141, which I thought was a certainty, and he finished 310th. That said, he had the injury, the hamstring that happened in late July, and then it moved to a 60-day IL in August. So it got cut short. And I know for Paredes owners, my brother being one of them, who tried to snipe me with drafting him after he knew my chalkboard pick, they were kind of lamenting about the slow start. I think it took like 20 games before he got his first homer, but he really did start to turn it on. He had 13 homers in May and June and ended up with 20 homers in 102 games. So it's not a terrible pace. If he ended up playing 145, 150 games, he might have eclipsed this. It's tough to say. The power kind of slowed down a little bit, but the average had picked up. But yeah, I think just like, we can't spend hours on each of these guys, but early thought going into the offseason, Steve, is I'll be interested because Paredes did come back briefly at the end of the year. I'll be interested if the discount is there to kind of buy back in for the same reasons, and maybe this will just kind of suppress the cost in 26 drafts. But quick thoughts on Paredes here. I am 0 for 1.
Yeah, I think this is a technical loss, and nothing we can do about that. I mean, still did have 20 homers and an OPS above 800, which if you would have saw just the OPS, you would think it's an easy win. And he was 28% better than league average. It just he didn't have the volume, and 53 runs, 53 RBIs isn't going to cut it despite the good rate stats. But I mean, other than that, like he was Isaac Paredes. He pulled a bunch of fly balls, hit a bunch of homers into the Crawford boxes.
The
And,
average ticked up,
yeah, the
15
average
points.
ticked up because of that. Like, it was he improved his ISO by 50 points on last year after that disappointing why the stock was a little bit low despite the move to Houston, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the hype behind that. So yeah, it's a technical loss, but the process was definitely right, and for sure I will be interested in him again next year. It's just too good of a fit in the ballpark, and I think if you run it back, if he stays healthy, it could definitely be a value next year. But first
Yeah.
one I would say good process, bad results.
Yeah. I like that. And it'll be interesting because he would have had to be in the top 140 for this to work out for me. Do you think his ADP next year will be in the top 140?
Maybe around there, maybe 150 to 175,
Yeah.
I mean, the rate stats were there. They were there.
Mm-hmm.
The process was there. It just he missed time because of injury.
Okay. Well, we'll keep that in mind as we get into our mock draft if we like Paredes around 150, 160. Steve, moving over to your first target, it was one I absolutely loved. And I'll kind of tee up the Mike Trout here because his ADP was 94. You needed him to finish top 75. And it's just hilarious when we say this stuff. You might know where I'm going with it. But it was one of those where we were like, Mike Trout is not going to finish in between 75 and 94. He's either going to be a top, 50 player if he stays on the field, or he's not going to stay on the field and he's going to finish outside the top 300. And he stumped us. So talk to me about what happened with Trout. It's a head scratcher, but I love the pick at the time. It did not hit as Trout finished 181 on the player rater.
I mean, it kind of was exactly the opposite of what we expected. So this was like bad process, bad results. If you squint, you could see some positive value, right? I mean, he missed, and like if you'd have told me like, I think my logic was, if give me 130, 140 games from Mike Trout, and we got that, we got exactly 130 games, but this was the first year where like you saw a true skill decline, right? The K rate was the worst of his career. He lived and was really good in the high 20s. It went to 32%. With that, the average was, for a season in which he's played more than 100 games, 50 points lower than any point in his career, right?
Yeah, that's tough.
It's tough to see just because I've been such a Mike Trout fan. That said, like under the hood, there's still
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
lot to like. I mean, the XBA is 246, but that just goes to show you got a little bit unlucky. Probably in the power department too, with just 60 home runs despite a 16% barrel rate, an 85th percentile hard hit rate. The bat speed was still really good, but a decline from the last few years, right? He was at 73% in 2023.
Or 73 mile per
76%,
hour.
76 miles an hour in 2024, although it was a very small sample in 2024, down to 74 miles an hour for bat speed for this year. So, I'm torn. I don't think I'll be interested in him next year. It seems like he's this low power, all or nothing type of hitter, just with the K rate at where it is. The swing and miss is, it's not going away, and I don't think it would be safe to you know uh project any improvement as he ages here. Maybe there's a swan song season, but I think that the price will still be pretty high just because of the name value. And despite me wanting and trying to will Mike Trout to, like, just stay healthy and have a season like he'd had in 2022, right? It wasn't that long ago, but
Mhm.
I just don't know if it's in the cards. But I mean, that said, hey, he was still 20% better than league average. That's how good Mike Trout is. It seems like Father Time is catching up with him, just at a more exponential rate, just because of how many injuries he's suffered and how much swing and miss is now a part of his game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we didn't say it out loud that the stat line, he hit 232 for batting
Yeah.
average, 26 homers, 73 runs. He had 64 RBI. But like you said, Steve, 130 games, which is hilarious. I listened back to the chalkboard episode, and you were like, just give me those 2 10-day IL stints, which is exactly what happened.
Yeah, he missed
And
a month. I mean, it was one IL stint and he missed a month, but
that's
yeah,
right.
it was
Yeah,
essentially
yeah.
two 15-day ILs. Yeah.
That's right. But so it wasn't dismal for Trout, like you said. I think it's just crazy that when you actually look at how it's happening or what the decline is, really he only hit fastballs this past year, and like every other year he's had no
Yeah.
problem with, I won't say no problem, but like he did damage on breaking balls off speed, and this year it's just 21 of his 26 homers came from the fastball.
It was
Yeah,
kind of all or nothing too. He still, had a 34% strikeout percentage versus fastballs, 233
yeah,
batting average, 216 XBA. I mean, yeah, he slugged versus him and had a 51% hard hit rate, but it's not like he was hitting them for average.
true, true. Yeah, so that was it for Trout. I mean, it's crazy that to find a season where he had a sub 800 OPS, which he was 798. You have to go all the way back to rookie 2011 season. So yeah, maybe Father Time is finally coming here for Trout, but there might be a little. It depends on how late everything goes. Because if
Yeah.
his ADP was 94 last year, you got to imagine now this is going to push back to, I don't know, again, kind of the Paredes range. So
Yeah.
how about that side by side? I mean, if it were a util,
Yeah.
Paredes or Trout.
Oh, man. Despite all of that, I think I would still lean Trout. I don't know. Maybe I'm a victim of that name value there, but I still see a little bit more upside
Yeah.
in Trout.
I think I'd go Paredes, but I feel like it's close. I
Fair.
think that
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think
it's
that might be
close.
a decision we have to make in March. So, okay, my second target, which was kind of a late call and on brand for me because I kind of like the high floor guys, but Ian Happ was one that I didn't even expect myself as a Cardinals fan to pick. He's just been kind of the hallmark cubby in the past 5-10 years. Um, and Hap, the reason why I chose him for a chalkboard pick, he was going to ADP 122. I needed it to be a top 101. Um, was all around just the stability of runs and RBI and his availability. He had in 2024 coming into this year, he had his best hard hit rate, his best barrel rate, his sprint speed was up. Craig Counsell had all the Cubs running, so I thought everything would kind of take a slight tick up, and that would be enough to do it. Because what he did last year was good enough for like top 60 on the player rater, and this year it was just a very Ian Happ type of season where he finished 120, so almost exactly what you were expecting at that draft price. A 243 average, which was identical to what he did the year before. But
It's OBP too.
that's right. Yeah. But the 20, yeah, no kidding. 341 OBP and it moved up to 342. But the stolen bases cut in half from 13 down to 6. He just didn't attempt as many, which, wasn't on my bingo card because, the Cubs, I just thought it was like a philosophy thing along with the base paths, kind of opening up from the rules. So there's not that much to go into here. It was just, I was hoping for a slight step forward, and he ended up just being the ultimate Ian Happ season. I think he's still just such a steady Eddie outfield option. But maybe we can't like bank on growth. So, don't expect there's much to add here, but any thoughts on Hap, Steve?
I mean, a Hap is a perfect target for like a different version of this game. Like, pick the guy who's going to come the closest to his ADP, right?
So
Or
true.
like just. I mean, even his stat lines from you know just all around, like he is just consistently like a 115 to 122 in good year WRC plus guys, like low 20s homers, 9 to 12 ish steals. Like he is
Just
exactly who he is. He
it's
is
like a
a
letter
metronome.
grade.
Yeah.
It's like when you take a test when you're a kid and you get like an 88 and it's just a B, and it's
Yeah.
like you're an 80, 85 or something. And you're like, oh, it's just a solid B. That's who Hap is, and that's
Yeah.
who he's going to continue to
And
be.
I mean, that's a valuable thing. I mean,
Yeah, it's solid.
you could probably, I mean, I don't know if there are any projections up on Fangraphs for next year already. I don't see them, but you could do the back of the napkin projection and get pretty close, probably closer than most for Ian Happ. Um, just based on looking at the last few years and saying he's a 20 homer, 245, 340, 8 steal
Mhm.
guy.
Mhm. Mhm. But solid runs and RBI, which is
Sure,
which
yeah, just
is underrated.
Cubs
Yep.
offense is so good. Although, yeah, I mean, I guess Tucker was gone for a while, but the Cubs offense will probably be pretty good next
Yeah,
year again.
I think so. So we are 0 for 3, and we're moving to 0 for 4 here, Steve. Back to
Oh
your
man.
second target. This was Austin Riley, who needed to go from ADP 28 down to 22. And Riley finished 316 and had the same amount of games played as Paredes on 102 games. Riley had 16 homers, a 260 average, and 737 OPS. Lightning struck twice for the Braves, but talk to me about what you make of this one and what we make of Riley kind of moving forward.
Yeah, I was big on the Braves bounce back, and that did not happen. Although Olsen sort of salvaged his season
Solid. Yeah.
towards the end. I remember saying I was up in the air um, between him and Olsen, and I think I probably would have pretty close to a win with Olsen
Yeah.
had I picked him. But yeah, I mean, what I just couldn't imagine how it got how it could get worse for Riley, and especially last year because he was turning things around and then got hurt and seemed like he was the player he always was and coming around. But that was clearly not the case. That being said, like it shouldn't be this bad again, right? Like the average exit velocity was right in line. The barrel percentage was right in line with 2024, better than 2023 when he was really good. Um, the hard hit was still there. Bat speed still there. Yeah, there's swing and miss, but there's always going to be swing and miss in this game. And I mean, the average was still fine. It just the power was non-existent. A 12% home run the fly ball rate. I remember looking at that 14% last year, saying, it's going to get back to the 20% that he normally is. It got worse. The contact percentage went down a little bit, but it's not like he was chasing much more or swinging much more. It's really hard to explain, and I think I'm going to be in at a heavily discounted Austin Riley. Like the hard hit rate is still there, the barrel rate is still there. Yeah, the K rate ticked up, but it wasn't the 32% like league leading strikeout or close to league leading strikeout percentage that we saw for Trout.
Right.
So I really find it hard to believe that. I don't know. Again, will it strike again? And is this just who Riley is now that he's like sort of out of his, coming close to the 30 just because he's 29? I don't know. I still see a guy who could potentially hit 30 homers with a decent average in what should be a good lineup, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just giving too much credit into the years from 2021 to 2023 with Riley. Amazing that he finished 316, especially since he's like, Austin 316. Shout out to Stone Cold there for all the wrestling fans. So pretty fitting that his bad year was 316th ranked on the.
That's funny. Yeah. Radar. It's interesting because if you remember, early days for Austin Riley when he came up, this was kind of the naysayers argument that he was a little bit of a hacker at the dish, and then he worked on the plate discipline. It got a little better, and in his better years, he was like a Terminator on off-speed pitches, like hitting well over 300. A couple seasons where he slugged over 600 on off-speed, and this past season it was kind of what we said with Trout, that like most of the damage, or at least most of the batting average, came against fastballs. So I don't know if he, as well as the rest of that clubhouse, are just like pressing to try to get out of this funk. But you can't tell me that the skills, when you look at all the stuff under the hood, like you said, Steve, like the quality of contact when he does make contact, and he's 29 years old. Like this is going to be a value if it dips to
this decline. This should not happen this quickly.
It should not.
Like, yes, it was a volatile profile, and like you said, he did need to work to get the strikeout rate down. It was like, when he had that, impressive rookie season, and when he hit 18 homers in 80 games and had a astronomical strikeout rate, and then improved that surprisingly,
yeah.
I just don't see the regression hitting this hard, this quick for him. And I'm going to be tempted to be in. Like he's still like he's buried on our ADP sheet for the mock draft, right? Like,
yeah,
I know we took Devers as a first baseman. We'll get into the draft, I'm sure, on a future episode. And I was like, and he's not labeled as a first baseman, so I was scrolling through and seeing like, oh, we need a first baseman, just because I'm dumb and didn't realize that we had Devers there. But Riley was like a guy that, if you miss on first baseman, talk about upside for someone that's going to go pretty late at a position that's top heavy. So
here's a thought. Just looking at kind of where his season broke down, 2 IL stints for the abdominal muscle, and then he missed the rest of the season. And if you look at his splits, pre-All-Star break, a 274 average and a 765 OPS. So respectable. And then, I mean, obviously the 765 is lower than what you count on from Riley, but 14 homers. Yeah. But then after the All-Star break, just in that small slice of time, it was a 108. He went 4 for 37 in that time. So maybe he was just trying to play through that. But yeah, overall, I'm with you that Riley feels like a buy the dip type of candidate. So those are our targets. We will take a turn to negative town with our fades, but the positive side is we at least got a couple right. But we're going to take our first ad break and be right back after this. All right, so jumping into the fades, Steve. No win yet. We are now 0 for 5 collectively. I had Luis Castillo, and he was at an ADP of 111, so needed to move outside of the top 133, and he finished 127 on the player rater. So that is close but no cigar. The reasoning going into this season for Luis Castillo that I was concerned about, and I think you shared some of the concerns, is the swing and miss stuff. The velocity has all been on a decline that just doesn't really pair well with, I know he's only 32, but also he's got a lot of mileage and he's kind of reinvented himself a couple times as a pitcher, and the swing and miss and the strikeout numbers have gone down and down. And what we said coming into this year, and you kind of, agreed, parlayed with when I brought this up, that this might be the first season that we see him well under a strikeout per inning. And that's what we saw, 180 innings pitched for Castillo and 162 on the strikeout total. The whip at 118 is not helping you. I think where Castillo barely kind of snuck in at the passable mark is the 3.54 ERA. His xERA beneath that was over 4. So yeah, by all accounts, it wasn't a disaster for Castillo, but it wasn't what a lot of the pitchers around him were offering. Like I know personally, I was in more on like Logan Webb in this range, and he ended up having a nice season after a slow start. There were a lot of guys that we liked at that 100 mark, and Castillo just felt like one that the arrow was pointing down, and I think it did. So this is a slight, squinting here, but a slight spiritual victory. But overall, it wasn't a disaster for Castillo. I think I'm still in the same camp that I'm not going to be targeting him just because this is a area of the draft that I look for a breakout. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
I mean, this year just gave you more reason to be out the next year, despite the decent results, right? Like,
yeah,
the 3.54 ERA was good. 118 whip was also fine. But the underlying numbers are just not there. And I mean, he kind of got by with just a 21% strikeout rate, 22% strikeout rate, because he pitched 180 innings, right? He got there with the volume, got you the 11 wins. The Mariners were good, so that definitely helped, obviously, right?
Yep.
And the walk rate was still good for Luis Castillo, so there was definitely some positive to that. But yeah, the swing and miss is just continually to steadily decline, and more reason for me not to.
Like what is his best whiff pitch anymore? I guess the slider, which is maybe just above average on swing and miss, but yeah, I mean,
slider's still at 36% whiff, but that for a slider, that's probably close to average, right?
I
most
think
sliders do have, and he still gets good swing and miss on the fastball at 26%.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's a pretty good floor, but just sitting 95 with no real extension. I guess that is, it's down from 95.6, which was what it was last year. So yeah, I think the arrow is still pointing down on Castillo, but
I don't know, maybe he still has like a few like old man pitcher years, just because he has so many pitches, and has been doing this for so long, and like can kind of salvage his way to respectable years despite middling underlying numbers.
Yep, I think that's spot on. Steve, finally we got one that is a hit by the book.
Is it though?
But spiritual, this one might be on the other side. You can tell Marte, which was a polarizing one at the time. Talk about kind of why you picked Marte and what you made of his season.
How can a guy who hit 283, 376, 517 with 893 OPS, 145 WRC plus, 28 homers,
be a successful fade?
A successful fade. This is sort of kind of why I was alluding to some of the rule tweaks that we may need to have. I mean, he finished 80th overall on the ADP or on the Razzball Player Rater. You had to pay a 29th overall pick, which by the numbers wasn't worth it, but it kind of was just because second base is so bad. But I mean, exactly what my concerns sort of were. Like I believed in the rates, I believed in the skills. The volume was just a concern for me, and he did only play 126 games. So, I think nowadays where you for older players, especially, and for guys who are, and I hate this term, but injury prone, or you kind of should bake in an IL stint anyway, right? I mean, he played 10 more games last year and hit 8 more homers, right? And had, 6 more RBIs or 6 more runs, 23 more RBIs. So, definitely was better on a rate basis last year. And that was kind of my point, is that there's no way he's keeping up those rates. And he didn't, but they were still really good. And you still got good value in 126.
Yeah, let me
games,
push
but
back a little bit here, Steve, because you did bring up the durability as a question mark, but I do, just from listening to it this morning, just to freshen up, you were kind of in the camp of who he was in 2024 is not the player that he is overall. Like you were saying, I still think he's a really good player, but maybe like 25 homer guy. And I do think it's, when you look at 126 games and 28 homers, like he kind of maintained the crazy savant sliders
I
that
mean,
he's never had.
I
Like,
think the big thing for me was that he had a 12.3% barrel rate and was career 9%. He improved the barrel rate this year. Sure,
so
the hard
that's what
hit
I'm
went down a
asking.
little bit. So
Well, that's what I'm asking is, do you think now that you've seen it 2 years in a
yeah,
row, because he's this kind of late 31-year-old, I guess you could call it a breakout in a certain way, are you kind of buying that this new Ketel Marte of the past 2 years is the player, is the skill set, if
in my
healthy?
mind, on a
Yes.
162 game basis, he is a 35 homer hitter.
Okay. That's a pretty, I mean, I
Yeah,
guess,
that's really,
and
really
it
good.
is
Like,
really
yeah,
good. And I know we
yeah,
were talking in our mock, we were like, "Oh, do we consider Cattell in the second
we
round?"
did,
So
right? Yeah,
you've
yeah.
warmed up
I
to
was
that.
fine with that pick. Yeah,
I do think the hard part is, though, like when you look at the entire, like these aren't one-off durability things, right?
no,
Like the one-off is that he played 150 games in 2023. You got to go back to 2019 to find the last time he had 140, and that's kind of,
mhm.
setting the bar because he's been high 130s a couple times. But the point is, you probably got to bake in 25 games missed for
Yeah,
Marte, and if you
yeah.
can live with that, and what was the speed this year? Like, what did he do on the base?
4 steals. I mean, he had 7 the year before. Like, it was,
Yeah, he's just kind of chipping
he's
in.
like a 5. Yeah, you pencil him for
Okay,
5 sort of thing.
so this is kind of like, well, I guess Vlad is more durable. I was gonna say, what is this,
Yeah,
like a little bit of a Vlad at second base type of thing,
yeah,
in terms of the back of the baseball
which
card.
is really good. Really,
It
really good.
is. It
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Marte, but we're finally on the board with
Sure,
a
technically. Yeah, yeah,
technical victory.
I have a
Okay.
better
My
win coming up, so
next
it's fine.
one is my first and only win. So I went 1 for 4 this year, and it was fading CJ Abrams, which Abrams had a 48 ADP. He needed to finish outside of 58, and he finished 76, which doesn't seem like an implosion, but I am proud of the logic here, Steve, because I think it's the inverse of Ian
Mhm,
Happ,
mhm,
where I remember going into picking Abrams for this game and thinking to myself, well, you know what? He had 20 homers and 31 steals, and he had a 246 average. By all accounts, like when you look at those for CJ Abrams, you're like, oh man, like that's a pretty solid season. And I think I don't have it right in front of me, but the Razzball player rater from that season that he had was in like the 80s or something.
mhm, mhm.
So, it kind of goes to show, like, you have to go to runs and RBIs where he had 79 runs coming into this season. but he had just 65 RBIs. And when you look at the guys that are going around pick 50, a lot of those guys have like 160, some even have 170 runs plus RBIs.
You want like 160 to 175 is in that area, right?
Exactly.
Combined
And
RBIs.
and this is a guy that is just like perennially around like 150. And
Mhm.
so that was my logic with this pick, is that I thought Abrams would still put up some of those, sexier fantasy stats of like, oh, he'll have some homers, he'll have some speed. And honestly, I didn't even count on his average going up 11 points, where he had a 257 average. He had 19 homers this year, 31 steals. Again, you look at that and you're like, that's a great season, but then you're stuck at 150 runs and RBIs. And again, that put him at a 76 on the player rater. So it's not to say that, I'm permanently out on Abrams, but I do think that when we get around March, these guys who have the power speed combo, the last stats you're looking at are the runs and RBI total. So I think it's kind of a reminder when you look at the player rater that stuff adds up in a hurry. So it makes guys like, say a Suzuki, when you look and see a low steal total and you're like, well, he's not going to hit 35 homers and he's not going to steal double digits. It's like, but he's going to get 170,
Yeah.
runs and
Mhm.
RBIs. So,
Mhm.
yeah. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's
it's not a consideration. We and rightfully are impressed at 30, 60 homers and steals, right? We aren't as impressed at 100 or 200 homers and of runs and RBIs. I get, so much is depending on situation, which is why we aren't, and it's not as predictable. But there is something to be said about it for guys that have a track record of doing it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, for
so
sure.
yeah, I mean, he's still just 24 years old. Abrams is. He only played 144 games. Like he battled a shoulder injury at the end of the year. I don't know if he had an IL stint. Um, and I mean, the runs were there, 92 runs, 60 RBIs. Like, I guess it's kind of expected for a guy that leads off most of the time, right? He bat first or second basically all year. He played a few times at 3 in the order, but I guess until the Nationals, like, their rebuild comes to fruition, that's when Abrams can then, I think, take the step up that he's probably projected for as a guy that has great homer and power and speed combination, right? Like,
Mhm.
that'll be the year that he can get like 115 runs and 70 RBIs, 75 RBIs, and 20 homers and 30 steals would then carry a lot more weight on a
Yes,
really good Nationals team, right? But I don't know if that's happening. They were supposed to take a step this year and they didn't. That's probably why Abrams didn't finish higher, right? Because the Nationals were
totally. Yeah.
disappointing as a team.
I think that's fair, but to literally like side by side compare it, I think it comes down to price, because Abrams,
Sure.
if you look at Abrams and Suzuki, like going into this season, Abrams ADP was 48, Suzuki was 81.
Yeah.
So 30 picks and change behind, and Suzuki finished 2 spots ahead of him on the player rater. His batting average was 11 points lower. He had the 32 homers, which is great, just 5 steals. But then you look at the runs and RBIs, and Suzuki had 178
Yeah.
versus 152. So it's like those sleepy stats just do make an impact. And I
Mhm.
think you don't get the draft day tax on those stats like you do steals, but it is team build or roster construction dependent. So anyway, yeah, good discussion. And I do like Abrams as a player, but I think you're right that the Nats got to take a real step forward before his runs turn into like 100. And then we're
Yeah.
talking. So Steve, let's go to your next fade. We're better at the fades than the targets, it looks
We
like.
are, and I think we've always been slightly better at the fades.
Yeah, maybe it's a
Um,
little bit easier to say our don't draft list,
than
but
the target, but
Roki Sasaki
yeah,
was one that you know, everyone was so hype on, and then people started to get nervous about, but you rightfully called this fade, even though it was kind of a shortened season. But talk about Sasaki and maybe what we think of him in the many years ahead.
yeah. I a lot of what I said was that I like him long term. I was very interested in Yamamoto the year before. That that even in a sense sort of took a year, right? Like Yamamoto's year was pretty good in 2024. He really broke out this year, and like if Paul Skeens didn't exist, he may have been the Cy Young.
Yeah.
And my logic around Sasaki was a little bit of the same, but I think he just was a little bit more raw coming over, right? There were some injury concerns and rumblings even when the Dodgers were signing him. And there was just some slight under the hood type of things going on with the metrics, whereas like his K minus BB was slowly declining from 2021 to 2024, and the fact that he didn't have a true breaking pitch and was so reliant on that splitter, and there were some velocity concerns, right? So that just gave me some hesitation as opposed to someone that some of these guys that come over like a Senga, like a Yamamoto, that I'm more eager to jump in on. Even Shota Imanaga, who was more of a finished product. Like Sasaki just seemed like more of a project, and he kind of is.
Yeah.
It's funny enough that in the playoffs it looks like he's carving out a role and like got named to be the Dodgers closer and looks really good in that role. Interested to see if that's going to be something that carries over. I don't think so.
Yeah, but a couple
But
saves. Yeah, that is interesting.
He's finally finding success, and maybe can build on that, have a healthy offseason. And I still think the sky is the limit for Sasaki, just with the raw tools that he has, the success he had in Japan at such a young age, and see that velocity tick up at a breaking pitch, and he's probably someone that could take off here. But had my concerns, and those came to fruition. He basically really didn't pitch much, so there's not much to talk about stat wise, right? It was only 36 innings, so you can't really take too much from that.
But the command was like so hard to watch,
I
mean, he wasn't ready mentally.
No, and just like watching him, like even just beyond the numbers, like he just did not seem poised. But that being said, in this new role, like he does have that poise and looks good, and it's closing out intense playoff games and coming in with runners on second and third.
Totally. Yeah.
To close out
Huge
the
confidence.
Phillies. Yeah. So, that could do a lot. I know we talk about the numbers here and all that. That's the basis of the show, but to be able to build on that, I think is invaluable for someone as young and as talented as Sasaki heading into 2026.
Yeah, not to put you on the spot, but I feel like you'd come up with some throughout the rest of the show. I'm trying to think of similar, like young, just absolute like gas arms that have a playoff relief role and then make like for the Cardinals, what comes to mind is like a Carlos Martinez of like
Carlos Martinez.
reliever turn starter and
didn't Waka do that too? Didn't Waka have like
yeah, that's another one. Yeah. That's a good call.
I mean, this was way back in the day, and he stayed a closer, but like K-Rod.
K-Rod.
Right?
Oh,
yeah.
Geez, what a fantastic playoff run. But I
Yeah.
feel like 4 guys who kind of come in bullpen heroes, and then it's huge for the confidence. So it'll be cool to see Sasaki.
I'm sure we're missing some guys too.
There's got to be some huge ones.
Some black aces that came in the playoffs and were electric out of the bullpen that were good long-term starters. I'm sure I'll try and think of some as we
as we continue.
Well,
we got an ad break, and then we'll get to John's targets and fades as well. So he's not here to defend himself, but we can walk through those. We'll take our second ad break. We'll be right back after this. All right, so John had some compelling arguments. Like I said, he put together a great
extremely
rundown.
Prepared,
very prepared. Easily our most prepared PitchCon guest. With no offense to others in the past, but John was strapped and came in with Jonathan India as his first target. It was a take that we did not hate, Steve. I think the new environment with Kansas City, he had talked about how it's kind of an underrated ballpark for hitters in terms of batting average. And really, we thought that the runs total with him presumably leading off would be where he kind of makes up a lot of ground here. But unfortunately, it ended up not being a good season for India at all. A 233 average was the lowest of his career. A 669 OPS was by far the lowest of his career. And yeah, he just never really got going. 9 home runs, a career low as well, and 0 activity on the base path. So not a single steal, got caught stealing 4 times. Kind of everything that did go wrong for the 28-year-old in India. And he finished, I mean, it was a deep shot. So,
Yeah.
he would have had
the cost of investment again. We need to weight this sort of stuff. Somehow,
because
but
it was like a ADP 240 or something that had to break the top 200.
If you took Jonathan and you just moved on,
Yeah, you really did.
Whereas if you took the guys that we recommended, Austin Riley,
little more to it for sure.
Yeah, a little bit more painful there, but good process. I mean, I remember talking with John, being excited that he was leading off a bunch around, opening day, and he kind of, it was just like, just do what you do on a rate basis going forward, and it'll be really good. But yeah, I mean, 0 steals after, being 27 of 31 over the last 2 years is kind of sad. And surprising, and then just just a downturn all the board, all across the board, basically.
Yeah.
As far as the surface stats and back to baseball and underlying stuff too. So, good thought, just didn't work out.
Yeah. And his other target is just bad luck in Ronaldo Lopez. I think that's the giant question mark. He did bring up he brought up some good points with Raylo, because a ton of people were quick to write off, obviously, the sub-2 ERA, and a fantastic 2024 as a reliever turned starter. And one thing John brought up is that he is a Braves fan. He watched all the games, and he said what doesn't show up on the stat sheet, and people are quick to say Lopez got lucky with a high left on base rate, is he completely changed his pitch mix approach when there were guys on base, and like his actual movements to the plate, which you'd kind of expect, but he was just a big believer. So I still will be watching Lopez. I wasn't like fully out, and he should be back next year, right? Because what was it was a shoulder, but I don't think it was anything related to major surgery. Moving to
surgery that would leave him out for the year. I do want to mention, John did mention to me off air, his other pick for this, and he regretted it, once Lopez went down in like spring training. And we did record with him earlier, right? And he would have changed his head had we had that news. His other pick was Chris Bubich, who would have been a definite win there. So
absolutely. That's a good shout.
Note that for the record.
Yeah, there you go. Now, going to his fades, he had Willy Adames, and it's kind of ironic because one of the big points, I mean, he brought up a lot of good points, but one of the points was talking about pressing in a new environment, which maybe was a thing for India, just with how slow he started. But for Adames, we got to tip a cap, because this is the 30 homer Giants season that we've been waiting on since Barry Bonds. Just in at 30 homers, 87 RBIs, 94 runs. So there's
he got it on the last day of the season.
Some counting
lead off too, which was
did he? I missed that. I missed that highlight. That would be a good one to watch. The average did fall back to 225 from what was 251 the year before. But yeah, I think Adames kind of proved that even the speed, it wasn't the 21 steals, but I know there was talks that John had about how the Giants were like close to dead last on stolen bases, and that, a guy like Matt Chapman was kind of the exception, where he had some good steals years. But 12 is serviceable, and the 30 homers is great. And then I think the overall counting stats of the 87 RBIs, the 94 runs is, I mean, those are top 15 in the NL, right? So he had a really solid year. Age 30, I think we're still scared of kind of this profile with the high strikeout rate and not the best lineup context, although with Devers, it definitely looked better. Yeah, curious your thoughts, Steve, on Adames moving forward. And on the player rater, just to tie a bow on it, he finished 78. So kind of right around the ADP, exactly the ADP that you got him at, which is funny, but he would have had to drop for this to hit for John. But what do you think on Adames next year, Steve?
I think good process here, right? Like there was a lot, like, the 21 steals, that's an outlier. And he did that in the contract year. I think that it still was impressive that he got 12, considering his career high before the 21, 20 and 2024 was 8. So, he still did run a little bit more that definitely added to his value and hurt John there. The fact that, he had 93 runs and 112 RBIs the year before, that's easy to regress, right? He still had 94. He had more runs. Did have, the 25 or so less RBIs, right? So definitely had some regression there, right? The BABIP was 297 the year before, easy to regress that, and it did fall back down. He is seemingly a 220 to 230 hitter, and the 251 from the year before was an outlier. So check there. But he salvaged the season with the home runs, the probably more steals and a good runs and RBIs. But it was definitely worse than his contract year in Milwaukee in 2024, but not that much worse, right? So, did hit the ball harder and still barrel the ball at a good rate. So I think that Adames is, I would project him for somewhat similar to what he did this year, and that's a pretty good player and useful fantasy player for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Adames. And then last one was a fade on Logan Webb, which
you guys had a good did you guys have like a board bet on that or something, right? Because you were a big Logan Webb guy.
Actually,
we gotta
that's
go
where
back
that's
and,
where I ran out of time listening this morning. But we
okay.
might have had something there because I was big on Webb. But yeah, Webb put in after again. I'll pull up splits, but I feel like it was a pretty shaky. Well, maybe it's just the first outing or two, because then he did right the ship straight away. But yeah, on the season, Webb had the volume, which is what my biggest argument for Webb is everyone's like, oh, 180 innings is a new 200. Well, he still gets 200 innings in his sleep. So it's kind of like where we used to be with Sandy Alcantara, that, the strikeout per inning isn't that great. But then you look up and he's got 224 strikeouts on the year, and it's just over a strikeout per inning, but it's still elite from a total standpoint. I always feel like the ground ball rate is just such a high floor for him, and the walk rate as well. And those things just stayed true. I mean, it was more of the same from Webb. It's like sub 6 walk rate. He's still 28 years old. The ground ball rate is always amongst the best in the league. So I think that, for 2 years in a row, the whip actually hurt you. And I think that's kind of what John was bringing up, is like, if there's some regression,
still kind of hurt you in a sense this year, right? Like 120.
Oh yeah, it did. Yeah. The whip hurt, but then you have a 3.22 ERA, all those strikeouts, 15 wins is impressive with the Giants. But I mean, he's just, an innings eater that is extremely high floor, is like an SP2 pseudo SP1 type of mold.
Yeah. I mean, the volume with 26% strikeout rate is just, that's what gives a lot of value. Sure. And there's things to poke holes in, right? And I know John was big on his home road splits. I'm pulling those up now, but
the K rate did take a step forward too, from a 20% up to 26%.
And with that volume, that's huge, that 26% strikeout rate with 208 innings or whatever it was is
for sure.
Massive,
the changeup took a big step forward on swing and miss stuff, and on just batting average, slug. Like the changeup was the story of the improvement for Webb this year from a strikeout.
He had 222 strikeouts It's so funny. I like how do you whoever looks at like strikeout totals anymore? Like was that that had to be the most strikeouts, just raw number in the league in the
Yeah, let's check it
right?
out. Man, it's so hard to just find actual statistics these days. Strikeout leaders.
Yeah.
Here's our good radio here. MLB strikeout leaders. So,
he was third. So it was,
okay.
but he was first in the National League. So Crochet had 255, Schoolboy had 241, Webb had 224. Luzardo was right behind him at 216. Skeens also had 216. So
Yeah, so he's ahead of Paul Skeens, which
yeah,
is like
and just raw strikeouts. Yes, he had more raw strikeouts than Paul Skeens.
What do you think the chances are he has more strikeouts than Paul Skeens next year? Because the question almost sounds ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's kind of the Logan Webb experience.
Yeah, I mean because Skeens on a rate basis was, 4% better than him, right? 3% better than him. So, I mean, just rank wise, Skeens was fourth in strikeout rate. Webb was 15th. He was 3.3% better than him. So, I mean, it can't be too bad because, or too much in favor of Skeens, just because the volume is there, right? Like even if Skeens, although I guess he Webb would need to basically carry at 26% again and throw 200 innings. I think it's more likely that it has like a 22, 23, 24%. And then Skeens probably takes them all over just because of the rates, right? So I would lean Skeens, but not like a 2-1, maybe,
Yeah,
4-3.
maybe just looking at like these just surface stat leaderboards, one of the biggest surprises to me when it comes to like volume versus strikeouts versus ratios is that on the innings leaders, where Webb was first in the league with 207, the fact that well, where was it here? I just lost it. Hold on.
Were you looking for innings pitch leaders?
Yeah, but going on overall, like what was Crochet's?
Crochet had 205 innings.
That's shocking to me. I don't know why that just disappeared right in front of me, but yeah, Crochet having 205 is
I mean, that
nuts.
was probably the one concern that everyone had about Crochet. He's only done it 1 year. How many innings he's going to go? They shut him down towards the end of last year. Right, he only 146. No problem. AL innings pitch leader.
Yeah,
no one knows anything when it comes
right,
to
and then Christopher Sanchez
pitching.
at 202. Yeah, man, that was
another guy that had probably some slight innings concerns, right?
Man, I don't know how he didn't land on my chalkboard. I had him in every
you've been
league.
the
I was
Christopher
all in
Sanchez
on
guys
Sanchez.
forever.
Gosh, I'm guessing wrong. I'm guessing wrong. At least I didn't pick Tyler Fitzgerald. All right. Well, Steve, that rounds us out. Any closing thoughts here? I'm excited to look forward in the next ones because we'll have our pitcher list mock, kind of the full landscape observations, right?
Yeah, we're in the 6th round, so I know we may record a little bit earlier for a show in advance, but we'll see how far we are. But we got some fun stuff planned. Could do some, maybe. I know we started to tease some all-star team or some slight recaps, but definitely excited to start breaking it down and looking ahead.
Yeah. Well, we will be on an every other week cadence from here, guys, in the off season, at least until we get close to prime draft season. So you guys can, I think we're recording live next Wednesday, and then the podcast will be out the following Thursday. So yeah, our next drop will be October 23rd.
Evergreen topics there, at least for now. And
we're
in the off season, so
it is. We can get away with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, thank you for joining us. Steve, it was great being back. But that signs us out for episode 195. Thanks for talking baseball with us.
Thanks, guys.